Today's story was written by Reddit user Simpleton025. Oh goodness, I was so nervous. I can't believe I got called by Octon. Octon! As in the Octon Corporation? As in the largest economic powerhouse in this arm of the conglomerate. They offered me a job. Me. Why? I wasn't sure. Something about acting as a secretary for a fighter? That sort of made sense. Octon wanted to get back into the showdown business and pit money. Now they claim they have a new fighter and want me to be his secretary. Simple enough, right? When I arrived at Nocto Alpha, I gawped at the sight of the station. It was massive with dozens of docking bays and landing platforms. It had so many lights it illuminated the space around it like a star. On one hand, it was beautiful. On the other hand, it was a bit much for me. We Kislans are simple people. Moreover, we weren't nearly as materialistic as the Tolbar, for example. Give me a small ship with a decent room, and I'll be happy. Upon leaving my transport vessel, I stood in the expansive lobby. At first glance, I noticed I stood out quite a bit. Shouldn't have been surprising. Most of the people there were Tolbar. So I was not only much taller, but also a mammal covered in fur with claws, fangs, and predatory senses. In short, we couldn't have been more different. And I was so nervous. My skin crawled and my hair fuzzed. My ears twitched at every little sound, and my nose smelled the cacophony of scents that polluted the air. It was different. This whole place, it felt like it wasn't meant to be here. But I couldn't pass up an opportunity like this, even though the job I was hired for wasn't that appealing. In truth, I'm terrible with people, especially non-predators. Every time I talk to someone, I get nervous. And when I get nervous, I babble. And when I babble, I get annoying. And when I get annoying, people just leave and I'm square one. All alone. Alone was never good for us, especially for me. Excuse me. A sort of guttural voice spoke behind me. I turned around to see a Tolbar dressed in a rather fancy uniform. Are you Shappa Ratif? Yes, that's me, Shappa. Follow me, please. And so I did. He led me down a long hallway to a different docking bay. When we got there, he gestured to the large red ship in front of us. The Moneymaker, Director Koblo Kombar's personal ship. He is waiting for you on board. I stammered again in surprise. Me? Why? Why me? Me? Yes, you. He said like he was annoyed. He hired you personally to work here. Personally? Why personally? Me? Why? He sighed. I don't know, but I suggest you don't keep him waiting. If there's anything he hates, it's people with no sense of timing, so go. I hopped over to the ship and went through the door. My eyes took in the sheer beauty and shine of the interior. It wasn't as big as I thought it would be judging from the outside, but it was still rather spacious. Wow. I couldn't help but say out loud. My right ear twitched as a door opened and another Tolbar appeared in front of me. This was more rotund than the others, with shiny clothes and jewellery decorating every part of him, except the face. He walked toward me and stood still with his hands behind his back. Shappa Ratif, I presume? He spoke with the same gob-like voice as the others, but it had a more dignified and royal sound. I'm Koblo Kombar. A pleasure to make your acquaintance. I stammered again. Hi. Hello. How are you? Thank you for having me. Thank you. I cursed internally at myself. Get it together, you dumb mutt. This is the director of Octon Corp. You can't embarrass yourself like this. He didn't look annoyed. If anything, he let out an amused chuckle. No need to be nervous. Please, walk with me. We walked down the ornate hallway as he continued to talk.
I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Why are you here, being chief among them? You've probably heard we acquired a new fighter some time ago, Adrian Lopez of planet Earth.
I looked at him with a confused expression. Earth? I don't know a planet like that.
Almost no one does, apart from a crew of Furians, my research team, and the two of us. The rest of the galaxy is completely unaware of its existence and its people.
A new world? I exclaimed loudly and immediately covered my mouth.
Indeed, Coblo said, but let's keep it under wraps. I don't want the exploratory committee breathing down my neck just yet. They call themselves humans.
He handed me a data pad detailing the various looks and attributes of the new world. It looked sort of like mine, just with much more water and fewer forests.
You were picked because your kind resembles one of their non-sapient companions,
he said, and showed me an image of a four-legged creature with golden fur. Its features did resemble mine, only I walked upright and didn't have nearly as long of a face or as much fur.
Now please, don't misunderstand me, he continued. This is merely to keep him at peace. He's been getting restless recently, and they like having mammalian companions around, but it is not the only reason why you are here. You have impeccable organisation skills, as well as a solid track record in accounting when you worked for HFY Metals. Impressive. I know how much Galia can push people.
She was a good boss, I said.
Good, but not the best, he said with a wink. Here we are. This is his room. When you get in, don't get discouraged or intimidated. He's a person just like you and me. Make him feel comfortable. The information regarding his match is in the datapad. Good luck.
He walked away and I immediately got nervous again. Good luck? Why was he wishing me good luck? What's gonna happen? Alright. Just stay calm. You can do this. He's a person. You're a person. You're both a person. Looks are superficial. Alright. I opened the door and entered the room slowly. It was rather spacious with not a lot in it aside from the necessities, like a bed and bathroom. Much like the rest of the ship, it was painted red with occasional white and gold. I wasn't sure why this was Coblo's favourite colour, but at least they were consistent with it. As I was looking around, I heard faint grunts in the corner of the room. Turning around, I saw him, the human, Adrian Lopez. He was lifting and lowering himself on a steel rod bolted to the wall. It seemed like some form of exercise. He wasn't wearing any clothes on his upper body. His back contracted as he lifted himself, pumping his back muscles. They were covered in scars of all kinds and varying ages. He was very impressive looking. A strong male, no doubt. I slowly got closer and he seemed to notice my footsteps as he got down on the ground. He turned around and looked at me, his eyebrows frowning and his head tilting slightly. The front of his body was no less impressive than his back and with fewer but more noticeable scars. As he walked closer to me, I shivered when our size difference became apparent. Not only was he broader, but he was also a full head taller than I was. Being a Kisslan, I was used to being taller than most other species in the conglomerate, but that wasn't the case this time. I sheepishly lowered my head and couldn't help but gaze at his body. He noticed it and hurriedly put a shirt on to cover himself. Hi, I'm Shappa. I'll be your secretary. Director Coblo asked me to fill you in on your match. I paused after that. Goodness, I was so nervous. He probably thinks I'm a mess. Not untrue, but I can't let it stop me. He started walking even closer to me. I'm sorry if I said something, or if I stared. It's just that you're different and have no fur and a new race. You can't speak, so I have to speak for you, and I speak a lot, and I stopped. He stopped me. He put his hand on my hand. Was he scratching me? Petting me? But why? I mean, Coblo did say I looked like one of the animals from Adrian's world. They really were responsive toward them. His hand was so big it wrapped around the whole top of my head. It felt rough but gentle and sweet, like I was a child. I might as well have been. He moved his hand to the side of my neck where my jaw met my throat, and then he stopped. He looked sad and a little embarrassed, like he was realising I was sapient. No, it's alright, I don't mind. You can keep going if you'd like. How did I say that without stuttering? Without feeling anxious or scared? His touch felt so calming. He rubbed my fur again and I found myself enjoying it. My tail wagged and wagged. It was a feeling I haven't felt much since I left my home. He stopped again and pointed at the data pad I was holding. Oh right, of course. Let's sit down. We sat down on his bed and I opened the files. We're going to a moon orbiting the planet of Valeria. Our opponent is Partinal Shipping, a now former subsidiary of Octon Corp. They tried building a new shipyard without Octon's consent or knowledge. It's anyone's guess as to why. Adrian looked at the charts and images with little interest. It was clear he didn't care about the details, only about the fight. Galnam Burson, director of Partinal Shipping, has a solid track record in the showdown matches. Out of the 17 matches he's participated in under Octon's name, he won 14. Granted, most of these were not overly large business deals such as this one. There are 2 fighters we should worry about. Halsif Silvertooth, a Skellion with 8 wins, and Koldar the Breaker, a Balwok with 11 wins and no losses under his belt. I hope you fight the former. With these big arms of yours, you'll snap him in half. I playfully punched his shoulder and giggled. He smiled at me, a look of genuine happiness. It can't be easy for him. I noticed his neck scars and frowned. Hey, you can talk to me with this. I adjusted the datapad and gave it to him. It showed a keyboard with his planet's letters. The pad would take them and then translate them to something I could understand. He wrote one word. Hello. I smiled at that and he kept writing. Thank you for doing this. You have soft fur. Thank you. Where are you from? I was born in Monterrey, a city in Mexico on Earth. I didn't know what any of those names meant, but it was still nice to know. Is it a nice place? It is loud with a lot of people. I do not like loud places. I hesitated before asking another question. Those scars, where did you get them? He didn't answer for a while. I probably shouldn't have asked. But then he slowly typed in some words. Bad business. No more needed to be said. He was a fighter. Even back on his planet, he fought. Maybe for money, maybe for other reasons. I couldn't help but feel bad for him. Far away from his home, doing something he's not fond of doing. I could relate to that somewhat. He was noticeably saddened by what he said, and I grabbed his hand and lifted it to the back of my neck. He hesitated before petting and scratching me gently. It felt nice and calming, but I didn't know why. This went on for a few more days before we reached the moon. When I looked outside the window, I saw the half-finished station along with pre-made habitation shelters. In the centre of everything was a massive white dome. That was the pit. The name still bugged me. According to historical files, it originated from ancient times. Back when people used to kill each other with swords and stones, they would capture people, put them in holes and watch them fight for amusement. A custom I'm glad was lessened somewhat. I met with Director Konbar and we went down to the main entrance. Adrian was taken elsewhere. We walked down to the meeting hall where we met with Director Burson and his retinue. They were Lebians, a race of very tall, very slender people with long, 6-fingered hands and 4 eyes above a wide mouth. Their skin was light green and their eyes orange and white. Koblo slightly bowed and extended his arm sideways, as was Tolbar custom. The Lebians returned the gesture, making a large circle with their hands.
Welcome, Director Konbar, Galnam said with his raspy voice. What a pleasure it is to have you here. I wish I could say the same, Koblo replied. Let's drop the pleasantries, Galnam. What do you think you're doing here?
Galnam tilted his head.
I don't know what you mean. I have every legal right to start this construction. The Corvalarian Shipping Guild. You know damn well what this is, Coblo interjected calmly. You're not an independent corporation, you're a subsidiary, and as such, you can't do anything without my consent and supervision. So, I'll ask again, what do you think you are doing?
Gam-Ol smiled at that, his mouth twisting and teeth showing. He walked closer to Coblo and spoke.
You are a crumbling empire. I'm just picking up the pieces.
I looked around nervously. That was a direct insult, and a dumb one at that. Despite Octon's losses, they're still one of the wealthiest and most influential entities in the conglomerate. Gam-Ol was being way too arrogant, and I had a feeling Coblo was gonna put him in his place.
Who's your fighter this time?
Gam-Ol asked mockingly as he glanced at me.
Is it this little mutt?
No, Coblo replied calmly.
It's something I guarantee you've never seen before.
Gam-Ol looked intrigued.
Well then, I won't tell you mine. Let's make this match one big surprise for all.
Everyone went on their way and prepared to watch the match. I sat down and looked around to see hundreds of people, dozens of species. All looked like they were important. The crowd went wild when the announcer walked in. One of my own, but different. She had snow-white fur with a crimson dress and eyes. Her curvaceous body swayed as she walked to the centre of the stage. She tapped her earpiece. Ladies and gentlemen, predators and prey, welcome to the showdown. The crowd roared and she continued. Are you ready for the spectacle you've been waiting for? Are you ready to see warriors spill blood? They cheered yet again. Today's match is one of betrayal and broken loyalty, a battle between a master and his slave. Who will win? And who will perish? Only one way to find out. I'm your host, Kalina, and with me is Gordo. She pointed to a Jabberan at the commentary stage. His feline features were difficult to spot because of his pitch black fur. The light dimmed and the two gates opened. Smoke rose above them in various colours. Here we have the terror of the twin moons. His fists are like hammers, and his brutality is only matched by his lust for glory. None have quelled his rage thus far, and a mighty record of 11 wins and no losses. All the way from Bowak, on behalf of Patonal Shipping, Koldar the Breaker! The large Bowak entered the arena, and the crowd immediately cheered. His arms were thick and packed with muscle. His hands looked like stone, and he waved them to the crowd. He roared at the top of his lungs and beat his chest. As he stood in the middle, Kalina turned to the other gate. And here is something new, a warrior the likes of which this galaxy has never seen before. Do not let his size fool you, for he is just as cunning and fast as he is strong and merciless. Hailing from a planet unheard of on behalf of the Octon Corporation, Lopez the Goliath! Adrian walked out and the crowd cheered, but many just stared. Murmurs filled the air as everyone, including Kalina, Gordo and Gam-Ol, looked puzzled at the sight. The only ones who didn't were Coblo, myself and Koldar, who instead smiled. When Adrian walked within a couple of steps from the eight, their size differences became apparent. Adrian was taller and leaner, while Koldar was wider and bulkier. Kalina whispered something into Adrian's ear, probably the rules of the match. They were simple: fight until one gives up or dies.
What is that?
Gam-Ol asked Coblo, who didn't reply. The fighters walked away from each other and prepared. Adrian took a low stance with his hands raised while Koldar stood casually. Wow, this is exciting! Kalina shouted over the speakers. What do you think, Gordo?
I'm unsure, he said calmly and professionally. Koldar has a reputation for breaking his opponent's whole skeleton, but I'm unsure of this Lopez. His height and long legs might give him an edge. The bells rang and Koldar immediately charged at Adrian. He brought both of his arms up and slammed them into the ground. Adrian dodged to the side and punched Koldar in the face a few times. The ape wasn't fazed much and he continued to swing wildly. Adrian kept ducking and dodging until he found an opening and kicked Koldar in his side, forcing him to bend slightly. Then he delivered a devastating hook with his right hand and blood started pouring out of the ape's mouth. Adrian never let up and kept landing blow after blow, knocking out a few teeth and breaking Koldar's nose. Koldar then caught one of his arms and hit him in the belly before throwing him to the side. A Bowwalk's strength shouldn't be underestimated. Adrian quickly got up but held his hand over his bruised belly. "Congratulations, Goliath! You've lasted longer than most," Kalina said playfully. "Both of them have taken blows," Gordo said. "For Lopez to still be standing, his body must be sturdier than it looks." Koldar then laughed. "Good fighter you are. Shame you had to fight me. Don't worry, I won't break too much of you." Adrian couldn't reply. Even if he could, I doubt he would. Instead, he did the unexpected. He ran toward Koldar at full speed, catching him off guard. He then jumped and brought both of his feet up. They landed on Koldar's damaged face and sent him staggering backwards. Adrian then kept landing kick after kick on Koldar's side and head, but the Bowwalk wouldn't fall. He grabbed Adrian's leg and tossed him into a wall. Adrian got up quickly, but Koldar wasn't far behind. With his massive hand, he wanted to punch Adrian, but the nimble human ducked below it and landed his own punch. Koldar's face looked even more deformed now, as Adrian kept hitting him relentlessly. The ape swung around wildly, but Goliath dodged every pathetic attack. Soon, Koldar fell on his back, and Adrian went after him. He kept punching with full force. Blood squirted and poured everywhere. Teeth flew out of the breaker's broken mouth. Was he trying to surrender? No one knew. Eventually, he even stopped moving his arms, but Adrian didn't stop. He kept hitting and hitting and hitting until Koldar's head was caved in and mangled beyond recognition. Adrian stood up and looked at the crowd, who just stared at him in awe and fear. His body was covered in blood. Koldar the Breaker was now broken and dead, killed by the new creature they had never seen before. Why didn't they cheer? He won. He beat the Bowwalk. Why didn't the bastards cheer? I couldn't take the silence anymore. I didn't know if I was crazy or high on adrenaline, but I stood up and started chanting, "Lopez! Lopez! Lopez!" The crowd soon followed, and a cacophony of cheering, chanting, and praising filled the dome. Adrian didn't change his expression, and calmly walked toward his gate. "How?" Yaunem stammered in disbelief. "What did you do?" Koblo calmly stood up and fixed his suit as he stared at the angered director. "I will have the documents sent over to you in the morning. Be sure to read through them carefully. We wouldn't want another debacle to occur, now would we?" With that, we left the Lebians to stare at their now dead champion. Koblo couldn't help but smile in satisfaction. A new age was coming, and he would lead it.